Do we clap? Do we wait? Do we play the music?
Please clap. That's it. No, obviously. Oh, the repeat rate did not transfer. Okay. So he felt his keyboard was just a little bit off there. Had to fix the repeat rate for the keyboard. That's it. The rate at which you hold down the button and it queues up basically, you know, button sequences and commands used for, most importantly with Protoss, warping in units. Something that you have to fix up there. So happy to have that fixed now. We'll be hopping back into game in a moment as the wall of chat fades off the screen. Astrea getting himself focused, getting in the zone here at the starter site Delta.
Yes, indeed. Going for a forward gateway, actually. Well, we have ByuN. You don't really call this a forward barracks. You do call this a proxy, but it's like halfway, I guess. There's a probe out for the scouts. The expectation is that the Protoss will scout that a proxy racks is happening, but then the hope is that they don't find the proxy racks, and they also have a little bit more ambiguity as to the follow-up. So there we go.
A confuser racks, yeah. It's not going to get to your base that fast, but you're also not going to find it. It does really give up a lot of reactor build timing, though. So the you know, Marines coming out, the reactors very much delayed, and it does mean you are often going to be going for, you know, potentially say 2 Reapers into a Hellion. Something like that is quite common. If you do stop to build a reactor on the factory, it's a big delay on the production. Now, Cybercore first for Astrea. He's got that low ground wall off. Looks like he was thinking about, of course, chrono boosting an early Adept across or something like that to deny the command center. But seeing that it's not a fast expand build, Astrea will adjust and adapt his plan.
Yeah. I'm going to Zealot to help out as he starts to harass the SCV, of course, trying to be as obnoxious as possible. So that they're going to see a factory expand after this. There's always that slight chance, I suppose, someone does kind of, you know, all in a 1-1-1, but not too often. And as you said, it's more of a confused racks than trying to actually find any advantage from being a couple of seconds early. So much so that he just brings the Reaper back home.
Yeah, Reaper's going to deny that scouting. Barracks floating back towards the main. And there is a shield battery going down for Astrea. Stalkers immediately coming out of the map. Now, Stalkers are very important for dealing with Cyclones. Part of the reason you want to go Stalkers early is you don't know if there's weird Cyclone aggression. They're also good versus Hellions. The Stalker is just a more well-rounded unit than the Adept. Of course, you can't shade with it, so you can't scout as easily. Right. Doesn't have that bonus to light as well. So this puts Astrea in a much more static setup where he's really just kind of sitting there at home, locking himself down, and he's relying on the early sentry, I guess, for that hallucination scout.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing that Astrea is known for more than basically any other Protoss, although we do see some experimentation from Skillus as well, for instance. And it is an opener anyone could do, of course, but Astrea seems particularly fond of it, either the sentry first or the sentry second. It's going to give you the hallucination to determine exactly what the kind of like the first legit attack is, I suppose. Is the ideal situation, but it's not actually a great attacking unit. So say that you hallucinate scout, you see a Hellion drop. Does that necessarily help you? Well, knowing is half the battle, I suppose, but then a sentry tickle beam isn't really helpful for the other half. And it is going to be coming in eventually to see this setup from ByuN, which is a factory expand, but a conservative one, high grounds, right? So he's really not looking to try and gain any advantage on the economics. And he did already force Astrea to react at least a little bit with that barracks opener and the shield battery. There you go, actually, very well-timed scout. Won't know it's in the medevac necessarily, but knows it's on the way. Indeed.
Could be a 2 mine drop. Could be, that's really 2 mine drop or...
Cyclone.
Or Cyclone is the only real option. Yeah. There's not much else it could be with what else he knows, and plenty of units ready to defend this.
I'm actually kind of worried. Like, Astrea does seem a little vulnerable to the early tank pushes, something that... Actually, you know what? I won't spoil. I talked to someone in the group, and they have some opinions, so I'll just leave it at that. But it does seem kind of consistent. In GSL, though he was also sick, he seemed very vulnerable to tank pushes. And then Atlanta, he also was vulnerable, which is why I brought that specific scenario up, in which you can be a little too greedy sometimes, and not necessarily on an early tank push, but even just tanks with the first bio push as well. Just mentioning it because we're also on a map that kind of has a complicated natural as far as that ramp goes when all your buildings are on the front. Can actually be kind of scary, but doesn't seem to be the setup for ByuN. He's getting a Liberator, he's getting the barracks, and he actually hasn't found any room with the medevac thus far.
Astrea, I believe, is going to be going for Storm Drop this game, so I would look for Templar Archives the moment that... Yeah, he's going charge, so we should see a Templar Archives in the near future. And using, of course, the Robo for a few observers and then a Warp Prism. Now, this does delay the third base, and ByuN's aware of it. It's 5 minutes 10, there's no third. ByuN should know to be exceptionally careful in this scenario. There is no reason to push into a 2-base Protoss player.
Yeah, which is why you saw him move back a little bit there. That's not usually a good idea, no matter what's coming up behind it. In this case, there are a decent amount of units even created from the get-go, and if they are actually outside of their own choke, then they can tackle this. And the Observer's been tracking as well. I think ByuN might actually be onto it, but we are going to get to, I was going to say, eventually a Templar Archives, and there it finally goes down. Okay, the Cyclone and Medevac actually just got taken. All right.
Liberator's going to go in the main
Cyclone
while
did.
he's distracted. The Medevac, I like that he leaves one Stalker to chase it.
Yes.
He may get that last hit on that Medevac.
Kill it.
He gets it.
It just, you know, the Stalkers deserved it. I'm not cheering for anyone. But that was actually a really nice find, right? Because I think ByuN was really assuming that he was going to be able to have that vision on that side of the map as well. It's just like a little bit of annoyance. He kills like a probe sent out to the third base. And that's up to the Reaper, which actually does get a probe. There you go.
Not too bad. Psystorm's just begun. It's actually more important to get your High Templar warped in than your Psystorm started, as gathering energy is very important in the long run. But he should have one Storm available. ByuN going for a third command center in the main base, into the 4th and 5th barracks a little bit after that. And only building a single siege tank and a Liberator. ByuN didn't commit too hard to kind of the tech units, like the Raven would be rather useless against this style. Outside of Hail Mary, Interference Matrixes locking the High Templar and the Prism or something like that, which is, of course, a long shot. But he's still just waiting with the Liberator. He's going to poke forward through the middle. And ByuN's not actually wanting to force a fight. He just wants to distract Astrea, get him off balance, stop him from probing up that third, and maybe get the Liberator in for big damage there.
You really should be picking up on what Astrea is doing. And I think he's maybe like second guessing occasionally, but then he scans, then he scouts, and then he actually knows exactly what's going down. And when you see that setup, trying to just do the normal pushes that you would against something like a Colossus opener or a 2-gate third Nexus, like it just isn't really it, right? So a little poke forward, as you said, and then he pulls right back. It's not going to feel really safe until you do get to the Ghost. But affording Ghost on 2 bases is actually a real conundrum. So getting a couple of Vikings here to ward away the Warp Prism as far as the High Templar faring can be really obnoxious for the Protoss. But then if that's only what you're thinking of, then yeah, maybe you're actually vulnerable to Storm Drops.
4 tech labs and only 1 reactor, which is heavy Marauder production. Good for tanking the Storm, but not a lot of anti-Zealot firepower. Marines are much better at killing those Zealots. That's something that you need to keep in mind. Storm Drop looking to come in. Now, he often likes to go for that third mineral line because it's kind of the most accessible to get in there without getting spotted. Astrea moving through the middle of the map. He's got quite a few Storms banked up. Blinking +1 attack on the way for him. He's only barely ahead in workers, so he'd like to do damage. The longer this goes on this position, the better it is for ByuN. And oh, ByuN's Vikings, they're so close!
Oh, they will actually find the Warp Prism. Yeah, it never went in. Possibly trying to plan an attack on the kind of like the side or behind the army as Astrea's army hits the front. Could have been cool, but it did not end up working out. Without the Warp Prism, it is extremely dangerous to go in there. I mean, you just can't get the High Templars in proper position. A lot of them had to get recalled as well. He does still have some in his army. ByuN should definitely not be looking to chase after this, but defensively, he'll probably be okay. He's got those Marauders you were just talking about, a decent number of Medevacs, and 1 really helpful tank in a very good position to ward away this army. Liberator also did find 5 probes finally, so that's a nice chunk, and we do have Astrea, I think, now trying to make that transition. You can't depend on High Templars forever. And now the tricky part for ByuN is determining exactly when it is okay to push into this transition. Can he not get hit by Storms on the way? If you've got Ghosts, then hopefully that is the case. A couple of Storms do go down. It's a lot of injured bio, and there's another pretty good one on the injured bio. But is it going to be enough? Very weak and Terran army right here. Widowmine's only just now burrowing, but the charge lot numbers just simply are not high. And I don't think we're going to get those crucial final shots on a lot of these Red Marauders.
New Warp Prism has arrived. Double Colossus production starts up behind it as well. But Astrea is only on 65 workers. He does not have a second Forge upgrading or anything like that. So it's kind of like, okay, it's good to scare the Terran back, but it is time to transition. Astrea's second Forge now starts up his +2 attack on the way. Second Engineering Bay and Armory only now starting for ByuN, so there is room to force this to late game, and it really does seem like Astrea is going to be able to get to the late game without being at a huge deficit. A situation which normally against ByuN, making it to late game is a trial in of itself.
I mean, with the style of play that Astrea has chosen here, and he can do so many different types, but this one, it really did force ByuN to reconsider what his tempo plan was. When does he move out with a certain number of units to offset a more typical Protoss opener? When does he actually get his push going and then go into like a double drop and a multi-pronged push, right? Okay, I'm not the one who can do that. I have to stay at home. So yeah, there's an opportunity in like really nicely played games, like perfectly played, right? Really high expectation, where the Terran player can perfectly navigate that kind of post-High Templar, or, you know, the Ghosts are out, kind of getting that, and then pre-Colossus, but it is extremely difficult to do, and Astrea kind of taking that fight with all those storms, weakening up ByuN's army, taking out the Medivacs and the Medivac juice, really once again forced ByuN to play a more defensive style. So Astrea has done a great job kind of controlling the pace of this game, where ByuN now is the one having to play a bit of turtle, maybe is a strong word, but certainly defensive game.
I think Turtle's fair, Zombie Grub. I think this is something we've seen Clem also get forced into a similar stance against Astrea recently, where I've gone from watching Clem non-stop attacking, ByuN non-stop attacking in these weekly cups against all the other Protoss players, and they play Astrea, and he's so weird and hard for them to figure out what he's doing. They end up locked in these later games. The question is, has Astrea actually got an advantage in it? And I would say no. It seems like a very even game when you look across all the stats. 2-2 is well on the way right now for ByuN. Equal upgrades, +2 done for Protoss, 1-1 done for Terran. That command center would be a lovely snipe if he can finish it off, but he needs to focus fire that with the Stalkers.
Yeah, he's currently not doing so. Perhaps actually moving all of them forward would have done the trick. As it is, seems like it is going to survive. 10 SCVs go down. That example on the left side was looking for exactly that storm. The follow-up one grabbing a few extra as well, and even more workers are going to go down as Astrea realizes he's got a real chance here, and now the Stalkers are focused firing the command center. It goes crashing to the ground. ByuN looking for revenge on and is trying to take the fight, but is this really the right fight to take?
It's so close, but the Medivacs are all getting blasted down, as are the Vikings. Both sides taking heavy losses in that engagement. Astrea will pull back to lick his wounds, but he took out 18 SCVs. He took out a lot of the powerful air units. Unfortunately for him, he lost all of his High Templar and Robo units. He needs to warp in more High Templar, which he has not done. He's gone straight for the Robo units. He's got 4 Robos. They're all chrono boosting, but he doesn't actually have enough money to build on all of them. Upgrades are nice. I like that he's going +3, +2, but he's got to be wary of the fact that ByuN is now at 93 army supply to 60.
Yeah, I don't know if he's actually feeling very not confident there on the camera, but assuming that ByuN doesn't immediately go for the attack, and even then it might already be too late, I actually think Astrea is going to have time to recover. He's not rich, he didn't have a huge bank, so yeah, producing off of 4 Robo and the upgrades and the Dark Shrine upgrade, that's a little much, but now we do have Disruptors on the field. ByuN is finally moving in, but a nice Zealot run by, catching the now Orbital, trying to go to a 4th base, and Disruptors are going to be excellent at buying time in that choke.
The Zealots down there are buying time. They should get out of there, though. You don't want to just throw these Zealots away. Their job is, of course, to keep ByuN occupied, and that's what Astrea does. Now, ByuN's floated his main out to the 4th. We don't see a sign of another command center. ByuN has 2-2. ByuN needs to get out on the map and control things. If he can sneak a double drop to the north, something to put Astrea on the defensive and be striking him in the back line. He needs Astrea reacting to him. ByuN looks next level when he's the one who's forcing the fights where he wants them to be. But because he lost all his Medivacs in the previous engagement, you can see he's kind of blobbed together right now. He is remaxed, as is Astrea. But more Zealots coming in on the south. This game's getting a little bit messy.
Yes, it is. Zealots are going to continue to hammer ByuN's bases, especially without a planetary on that 4th. And then the Disruptors back at home, and now currently the count of 8 are going to hopefully hold almost all of the positions we see here. And certainly, if Astrea can stay one step ahead of the army movement, he'll always be able to utilize his own defensive chokes. Maybe it doesn't win him the fight, but it keeps his bases alive. And actually, he's even looking for the fight. Let's be very careful with the Zealot control, but so far so good. And speaking of Zealots, these are still doing damage. SCVs have gone down, reinforcements have gone down. A successful distraction perhaps as well. ByuN does manage to mostly escape from the Disruptor shots, but has been pushed back onto his side of the map, and a total of 26, actually more now, as a DT enters into that orbital, have gone down for ByuN.
Wow, this is the problem with getting stuck on the defense. When the Protoss is in your face, picking where and when the fights happen, it's suddenly so powerful for them. And look, isolating a small army in the north, still hunting that down. He cannot let the Disruptors land. ByuN has to run whenever there's Disruptor shots in the air, and he is doing just that. Good pullbacks, but the DT's going ham. They're still there, assaulting the rally point. 32 workers go down. My only criticism of Astrea is that he's forgotten about the Storm tech. I think it's not a core part of your army, but you should still have a few High Templars scattered around. The Storms in the previous big battle was such a game changer. And look, obviously Astrea is winning economically, but he is not winning the army fight right now. And this is what happens in these late game PvTs. We go, oh, he's killing the workers, he's killing a base. Yeah, go Protoss. And you go, look at the army supply of ByuN. This game is not over by any means. Astrea still needs to find a way to deal with that 140 army supply of Terran units.
Exactly. That's why ByuN's managed to stay calm throughout this entire time. He knows that they're still the one-punch army, but the DT blink comes in. The Widow Mines pop off, however, and the DTs are gone in the blink of an eye. The Zealots soon to follow as well. ByuN is finally going to find some damage, finding the additional 3 Robos as well. Severely cuts into Astrea's production capabilities, and we do have ourselves a little bit of a worker trade. That's a lot of very injured medevacs, a couple of feedbacks. One Storm could have been huge. It's going to come down to the Stalkers, though, and they do grab 2.
Oh, this is where, imagine a single Storm somewhere in there would have been game-changing. And that's something where the Disruptors are now on the right. He did keep his Robos alive. That's the most important thing for Astrea, because that is the center of his defensive production. I love that there's a random Disruptor in a Prism on the south side of the map. And oh, we get so many medevacs. That's huge.
Actually, I wonder how many that is then. Is 3? Literally, though only... Oh no, he still has 8. Oh my god, I thought that was the entire drop. He must have been actually continuing to build a solid number of medevacs, which is really great news, of course, meaning that he still has the mobility and he still has some energy. Even though there's been tons of stims and tons of damage and tons of battles, he still has some healing here. War Prism is going to be found out, not going to be any more helpful, but ByuN needs to pay attention, and he will, able to save himself from a big Disruptor shot. And actually saving the army might be a different question. It's only a small portion of it. The rest of it now coming in, perhaps on the left side. Astrea does seem wary of this, not going to let himself get surrounded, but now taking the fight with the Stalkers in the front. The Disruptor's not shooting, and now it is ByuN actually who's got the surround, and it's going to be too effective. And oh, the Zealots come in as well. He kills all of the Disruptors, but the Zealots come in, and ByuN's supply is taking.
That was a scary moment. You know, Astrea, just when the engagement started, he got distracted because his Robo units, his Disruptors, were rallying through the Widow Mines at his third. He looked back, and he looked back at the front, which is why his Disruptors were late. But he had the numbers. He had enough. He did throw out the Disruptor shots quickly enough. And Astrea managed to win that fight still. But that's still a big army. You got to be careful with
Oh, wow. Yeah, the Stalker blinking forward. This Widow Mine could get a really huge shot, and it does, despite Astrea's attempt to split. One other thing that was affecting that battle, by the way, is that once again, ByuN has done the ByuN thing. He doesn't have +3 attack, but Astrea is also making huge mistakes by not clearing up these Widow Mines. They have taken out so many of his reinforcements.
Just lost the Observer. He's having to rebuild it again. These Widow Mines are keeping ByuN in this game. ByuN has now lifted another command center to the front base. He's desperately trying to rebuild orbitals. DTs trickling in is massive because ByuN does not have many scans. He needs to drop mules right now, but if he does that, he will not be able to deal with it. Looks like 2 Widow Mines still there on the right. At least they're not in the direct rally path. Zealots are going to find out, though.
A couple going down, many injured. ByuN still with a solid army supply, although his overall is not looking so hot. Once again, dependent on this army to do the entire work of the game. It's just not going to work out. Disruptor shot on top. Medevac's out of juice. No spellcasters, really. Just the one little ghost there. The Widow Mines do clear out a lot of the Zealots, but ByuN doesn't actually have that much staying power. Astrea is still banking, still with tons of bases, can reinforce over and over and over again as he continues to grow an upgrade lead.
This is fantastic play by Astrea. And you can see ByuN kind of shaking his head multiple times there in the camera at the bottom of your screen. Very well played by Astrea, and I think it's such an exceptionally safe opening that he does here. But you can tell he's saying, look, if I can just get to that kind of late mid-game, early late game stage, I will take control with the heavy Disruptor army. I will just take the map and play very nicely with a mixture of Zealot and Dark Templar backstabs and Disruptors on the front line. Now a transition into Mass Immortal from Astrea as a huge Zealot run-by runs into the south.
It's going to be really hard to just stay alive against the growing army that Astrea is bringing to the front lines. The Disruptors, you can always think of the Miracle splits and surround and eat. Well, even then, actually, the Disruptor count's still pretty good. But you actually try and do the same thing against a heavily upgraded Immortal and like a charge lot numbers too. And it actually goes the opposite way. You think Bio is going to win late game? Not necessarily, especially when it is missing +3 attack. The Disruptors even really need to come in here, but it does. And Astrea will take game number 1. Really nice build order choice, I think. That actually probably changed a little bit of ByuN's expectations, although he does do this build. It's not the first time, but then to actually have to have ByuN be the one that goes, oh wait, I can't. Oh wait, I can't. Oh wait, I gotta think about this. That really led to Astrea controlling the game.
ByuN unable to utilize his greatest strength. Dancing on the edge of the Protoss territory. At any moment, the Protoss not knowing if he's going to pick up and go in your main, attack the south, attack the north. He never got to do that because he was worried about the Storm. That Storm drop charge lot style is dynamic, it's powerful, and when he did finally push out, there was a few fights that looked very promising, but there was always a backup High Templar that saved his day. And over here, just before this fight we're seeing now, there was that Storm that came in from the south.
Yeah.
That did a massive amount of damage, and obviously, like, there's a point where you do lose a lot of expensive Protoss units, the supply doesn't look great, but you got to realize Terran doesn't have a flexible economy. You kill a command center and 20 workers, they can't just make that back like you can with chrono-boosted probes or lava injects. They are suddenly forced to counterattack, and if you can defend that, you're going to be in a good spot.
Which he absolutely was able to. Again, those disruptors came out really well timed, and then they were able to use the defensive chokes on site Delta. There's still many opportunities where I believe that ByuN in a different game, slightly different game, gets those concaves, gets those surrounds, gets the timing attacks, as in he hits before the disruptors are out, or while the Colossus number is still only at 1 or something. But he never really got the opportunity, and I didn't think he was really playing shy. I think it was appropriate for what he was up against, but you could still tell that that wasn't the best ByuN we could see.
Put it out of his element. And something in these big tournaments, $500,000 prize pool, you've been at the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice before, and it always brings out the nerves in the best players. You have to find a way to get in your element, a position where you can leverage your skill. Sometimes that means you have to give up some advantage at some other point in the game, or you need to take a risk. But I definitely think, you know, map control and the war for that is so vital. We've seen Astrea and the other Protoss players, when their observers get caught constantly by scans or ravens, they can't see where the drops are and they look panicked, they look afraid, they're always caught out of position. That bio stims in, they're chasing into Widow Mines for the whole game, and their bases are getting sniped, the Terran's getting out of dodge. We didn't get to see any of that in Game 1. ByuN is going to have to find a way in Game 2 to get it back into his roadmap, his plan for winning a TVP.
See if he can do it. We are going into Oceanborn for the second game here. In the top left for Shopify Rebellion, he is ByuN.
And his opponent hailing from San Diego, the American Hope, a very creative Protoss player representing Maturino. It is Astrea.
Champion of the now Americas region. The inclusion of LATAM did not disturb his chain of victories, or quite being able to prove it in these international tournaments, and then seemingly having the worst luck as far as like sickness timing when he does participate in Korea. They're kind of getting an unlucky group for him. But now in Katowice, really showing off against ByuN, who is once again going to go for this kind of confusion racks. It's not necessarily proxied, which it can go literally up to the ledge of Astrea if it really wanted to, but rather in the middle of the map. And it seems like he was totally fine with that opener. And I mean, it's certainly not what I would think I would blame the game on, but not going to change that. Perhaps we'll change the follow-up.
Yeah, it's not optimal on paper in terms of raw income growth, but it does just force the Protoss to adapt and react a little. Astrea, of course, was very calm to wall off with the second gate, scouting with the hallucination, and it was so smooth, his opening, for sure. But looking at the numbers in the mid-game, it didn't look like he was ahead after that. I did want to bring up last year's Katowice, actually, because if you think about it, Astrea had an amazing 2022, and leading into the start of 2023, there was so much hope. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, Astrea is the guy. And he kind of burnt out right before Katowice. He just grinded for like 9 months with no breaks. Didn't map it out as well as he should have. He was, you know, kind of admitted that, said, you know, it's a bummer, but I just felt like I was a bit unconfident in my play. I think I'd practiced too hard for too long without taking any breaks, and I felt a little bit hopeless playing at Katowice, and it was, you know, it was unfortunate for him and his fans. This year, I think he's in much better form.
Yeah. So I'm kind of smiling because, you know, this is something that Neve used to do. The top Protosses of the NA region, both sharing that difficulty, which is that, when they're really into it, they're really into it. They play a crazy number of games. But then, yeah, there's always that chance they get burnt out. And sometimes that quote-unquote like lack of caring, of course they care, but there's definitely a different feeling. Sometimes it's beneficial, there's less pressure, and sometimes obviously not, and they struggle against the consistent players. But I do want to mention, as we are on Oceanborn, although we get in the second soccer, not a century this time, this is the map where Astrea does do his very fast third Nexus. Apparently not going to do it this time around. I mean, certainly there are a lot of odds to watch of Astrea defeating, well, ByuN himself. So ByuN could go back and watch that. But then also defeating Clem again at top-tier Terran. So definitely wanting to change things up and not do a particularly greedy build against someone who absolutely could throw a tank push, but it's not going to be that again here. It's not going to be the Cyclone either, though. It is those Widow Mines, and that means that he will finally get something into Astrea's mineral line. Because even if there's something to protect it, you still want to go, basically, assuming that they can kind of bypass it. When that Cyclone last game, it actually did nothing, and then it died, got caught.
4 Widow Mines is it's a proper skill check. You always have enough to drop 2 or 3 in the mineral line and drop them on the retreating probes or in the other base. It basically says, hey, you need to do a lot of things very quickly to defend this without taking big damage. But Astrea, he does have a few units out. He's got 2 gates up, and he will have an observer soon. If he can see the medevac coming, that's massive. But unfortunately, that Stalker's misplaced. It's behind the grass. Even if it was in front of the grass, I don't think he'd see this medevac.
Yeah, no, he would not. He would not, which is also good for ByuN, obviously. Might have chosen that direction specifically. This Widow Mine drop, like I've been saying, it's going to activate. Whether it gets big damage is the question. But it's also going to get scouting, which we'll go into in 1 second. 1 Widow Mine into the natural, the rest into the main. 2 Stalkers already really digging into the medevac health, however.
Yeah, this is great. And respecting it as well. Good on ByuN, not letting these Widow Mines fire! He barely gets it before that one can shoot. There's only 1 Widow Mine left here in the main. It gets, it does stay clumped, and 7 probes go down. Now, it could be worse. I think 4 Widow Mines is a big commitment, but the medevac getting out of there, you get mining time, and you see exactly what Astrea is going for as well. It's a good start for ByuN.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and it's really quite unfortunate that medevac got away for Astrea, as I believe his Stalker was in the natural. It just wasn't where it is we saw right there. It was still in the mineral line. But regardless, the Scout also came through, right? So that's a really nice thing about the follow-up medevac drop, whichever you started off with. But the medevac drop does get into the main base, and the natural sees that it was actually a rowboat first, but then the Twilight Council also came down, and we do have the Templar Archive. So I know he's got to the rowboat, I got to figure he's got to the Twilight Council. The medevac went everywhere, and it's not scouting the Templar Archives. It probably doesn't need to, as again, that third Nexus is also screaming a lot of warning signs right now.
Astrea not playing the super creative, unpredictable styles that we've seen from him in the past. He's playing essentially 2 slight variations of the same opening in a row. Does knock that Reaper off the side of the map. Launched into the stratosphere. Goodbye.
That was like 250%, damage in Super Smash Bros.
Yes.
Their Nexus will, of course, go down eventually, but this is, again, like not every Protoss opener is going to be this, right? And so while it can be safe and it can really unsettle the Terran, there are definitely going to be weaknesses to it, and primarily, again, making sure that you use your army correctly, not getting overzealous when the storms suddenly run out and you're like, oh god, what do I actually have? Unupgraded Zealots. Not actually getting caught on storm forever when the Terran player is starting to aggress and get ghosts out in the field. So that's what we're going to be paying attention to. But ByuN does have to consider how that last game went and whether or not he wants to get into a similar position or push some different angle a little bit more. And he kind of already is. This drop coming into the main base, not promising, didn't look like it was going to do a whole lot. But even then, activated a shield body overcharge, which is actually just nice of Astrea to have in the main base, not necessarily a guarantee.
Well done by ByuN to get all the units out as well. No overcommitting for either side just yet. Zealot does come in, finds the SCV on the third base. That's an annoyance for ByuN. Putting the third on location saves you a lot of lifting time, moving that thing around, a lot of fiddling with the command center. But it also does mean it's very exposed to that harassment. Astrea has got another shield battery up now, I believe on the third base. His blink has started. Feels like his economy is still pretty small. I thought with the opening being a bit more awkward, Astrea might try to force a 2-base all-in to work, but ByuN is so active on the map, that's easier said than done.
it does seem like one thing that's consistent for Astrea here, which might turn into a weakness as we watch the series go, is that he's very determined not to die to the earlier attacks. But as far as being in the best position for the mid-game, like the drops, for instance, that can be missing as Blink is not done, but the Warp Prism and the Storms finally trying to come through to help out. They don't get the kills, but they do dissuade that drop. It's going to stay in the corner once again. 9 probes going down. Astrea almost still even with the workers of his Terran opponent while we're about to have 3 mules dropping. This is the best sign for Protoss.
I feel like Astrea sometimes he does look a little bit scared, but then he gets behind and you see Astrea's full strength come out, you know. We used to always say, oh, he takes a punch to the face better than anyone else. It's because he's good at making comebacks. Nice little Storm Drop, gets 7 SCVs. He's probing super hard after taking that last damage as well. He's up to 60 workers now, taking the 6 gases. And he's going to go for the Tempest transition. This is such a weird build, but he's been doing this versus Clem.
Yeah.
He beat Clem with this the other week. He won 1 game against him. He lost a follow-up game with the same strategy. It's very hard to get there, but Tempest plus Storm is an amazing composition.
That's a pretty good storm as well. The Zealots will have to evacuate as the Widow Mines are buried, and they do want to use the shield battery as much as possible. We got the drop coming back into the natural as well, and Astrea is still kind of, I mean, not exactly low on like the overall unit count, but getting him in the right position every single time is obviously a struggle of the Protoss race. So he is getting caught a little off there, but now a shield battery is also at the natural. Better to actually just let that be an easy defense and hopefully focus entirely on the front lines, which is High Templars are not here. Oh, there they are! And the pickup's going to happen, trying to avoid the High Templars. Ditto as the High Templars try to avoid the Widow Mines.
Nice Warp Prism micro, but Astrea just doesn't have the numbers. He's on the back foot so badly right now, and the more of these small skirmishes there are, guess what? You've just used your entire bank of energy. You have no more Storm left as Astrea. You don't really have time to warp in High Templar and wait for it, so what do? Well, ByuN says this is where you die. I'm going to push in, I'm going to take you out. Battery overcharge does go down there. The Prism takes a massive hit, but barely keeping those units alive. Great holds for Astrea. As we say that, though, that drop sneaking into the main. He's watching for it, but is he quick enough to be on top? That medevac is so annoying.
Well, now he also 100% just doesn't have that many units. That is now absolutely a problem as his army supply is dipped down drastically, especially with the addition of the technology transfer. You know, he's got stuff invested into an air upgrade and a single air unit that's not helping yet. The Void Ray will eventually pop and eventually burn down medevac drops, but the main issue is still that army on the front lines. Feedback coming down, only 1 or 2 medevacs with a decent amount of energy, but I think it's going to be enough for ByuN to actually stay here and kind of continue poking and prodding. As long as this charge lot army, which is hardly even here, doesn't get us around, he's kind of the one free to do this.
High Templar, one of them does lose its energy, which means there's only 1 Storm available inside the Prism. ByuN still has that red hit point drop in the north of the map. His own 4th command center, armory, and 2nd engineering bay have all gone up behind it. So ByuN is getting established in the macro game. He says, I'm going to take a 4th, go double upgrades, and do all that cool stuff. But also, you're pinned on 3 base, and you are completely stuck. Good luck getting out of this corner. You can build static there all you want. You're not taking a 4th base, Mr. Protoss.
No, apparently not. ByuN with a 50 supply lead, 40 of it in army, also continuing to upgrade his pure ground units, where Astrea is actually not a 1-1, guys. He's on 1 armor and 1 air. Warp Prism gets taken out, very few storms available. A weird EMP, but that's already still got plenty of ghosts extra, and now he's looking to actually take this game. Shield Body Overcharge once again activated, but will it be enough? A very good concave as well for the Terran. That's going to mitigate that single storm that came out, and there you have it. The GG as ByuN ties up the series.
A good mix-up from the Korean Terran. The 4 Widow Mine drop finds value as Astrea fails to make the final split, loses an additional 6 probes, and that does cost you in the opening game. From there, it was relentless. It was, I am not going to sit back and let you do it. Thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate the love out there. But what a fantastic series we've seen so far. Astrea had his way with ByuN in game 1, and ByuN said not a chance in game 2. It's really interesting to me what Astrea brings out in the 3rd game. I think he has to mix it up now. He can't keep doing the same build. Yeah,
100%. You know, like, because you said you were kind of surprised he didn't just go for more of a 2-base committal, shall we say, to try and kind of turn the tide, turn the momentum. And then I was pointing out that this just feels like something that, yeah, can take advantage in the proper scenario, but it obviously does dedicate the 2-base. It delays the economy. And then if you don't get attacked, or you get attacked in a very specific manner, I suppose, where ByuN keeps his army alive, which is what happened, and it can be difficult to actually use that style. So we had ByuN compensate, he adapted, he now shows the weakness of that style, and Astrea has to say, okay, well, maybe I don't do that, maybe I do go 2-gate third Nexus, and then what if ByuN actually that time does something aggressive early on? I was expecting a little more of them doing a lot of poking and prodding and then determining what was going on, and that's what can create really the chaotic games they've had in the past. But this actually is, I think, more of like a cognitive thing, right? They're both clearly thinking a lot before actually doing the action and trying to counter each other's expectations, perhaps. So it's not necessarily as scrappy as I thought, but it is entertaining.
Often the adjustments at the highest level of StarCraft are small, minute tactical adjustments in the midst of the game, and a lot of the rest of it is between the games. It's, you're playing like this, okay. And then I scout, I see you playing the same style again, bam, a decision is made. And ByuN made that decision very quickly upon scouting what he was up against, which was, I will get in your face, I'll be very aggressive, and give you very little room to breathe. The big weakness of Storm has always been drops. Anytime you can kind of get in the back and split up the Protoss' attention into 2 or 3 places, suddenly Storm's not as effective. You can't find a big Storm in the middle of an army because we are split into 3 different places. We're going to finish off this series in just a minute. Don't go anywhere, everybody. We'll be right back.
안녕하세요. 쇼피파이 리벨리온 테란 변현우입니다. 저랑 파이어플라이 선수가 이제 서로 그림을 그려서 스타크래프트 II 유닛 그림을 그려서 맞춰보는 그런 미니 게임을 할 건데요. 네.
大家好，我是叶蝶。接下来我要画女妖。差不多了吧，我已经江郎才尽了。
对，finish。
要
finish。finish。finish。
maybe.
Me.
You so good.
Yeah, me so good. Yeah, you so bad. Yeah, so bad. You so bad.
That was quite an amusing video. Yeah, that's not exactly what a Banshee looks like, but... Because I'm pretty sure it only has 2 circles, by the way.
Yeah, it's got 2 big rotor engines on the side. I was like, wow, there's like 6? Like,
Apparently.
It's always great, you know, you can play the game all the time. I almost feel like someone who's just playing for the first times and they've just kind of played with a Banshee for the first few times, they've looked at it, they're going to have a better idea maybe of the image on a conscious level than a pro gamer who's played tens of thousands of games, and it's just like a pattern recognition silhouette for them. They don't really see the unit anymore, you know?
I think that's 100% true, although a silhouette would only be 2, but, you know, instead of 4. But still, I get your point, though. But you're right. I think it's 100%. Like, we don't even think after a certain point of trying to get good at StarCraft, we don't think of the unit and its visuals and its cool factor like we do when we were 12, and, you know, we named them all names and stuff. So, yeah, I'm not too surprised. But then I think what we've determined through all of these media days is that none of our pros are very good artists.
This is the great thing about all sorts of sports, Zombie Grub. It's you give people the ability to get good at one thing. Very, very good at one thing. And they don't need to get good at other things, okay?
Okay. Well, we finally are in Game 3, guys. In the bottom left, we do have Shopify Rebellion's ByuN.
And in the top right side of the map, the Protoss powerhouse representing Maturino, Astrea. Hey, it's good to see as day one goes on. Already a bit more hype in that crowd out there. People are excited to be back here in Katowice once again.
That's pretty awesome. Love the signs, guys. We got a proxy Rax that is the least proxy ever. This is this actually would be the correct proxy if it was the other side of the map. We'd definitely call it a proxy at this point.
Yes, that would be the most obvious spot they always check for, and it always gets found if you try to build it there. Now, just misses that.
Oh, is he gonna? Yeah, he just misses it, but I'm looking at the gases and seeing, oh, okay, no, he is too, actually.
I was wondering about the gold base on this map, and I was thinking, you know, for Astrea, he's not quite Hero. Like, you know, Hero, you put him on a map with a gold base, and it's just like, he's like a mosquito going towards a bright light at night. Like, he can't not. With Astrea, it's like 50-50, so I was like, maybe he'll take advantage of it. This looks a lot more standard.
Yeah, no, I remember Hero, the last map pool, he would always go for the gold on one of those maps. The point that I was pretty sure was obvious, then we'd continue to watch pros be like, I'm not going to scout that. No, thank you, sir.
Yeah, we're going to lose to double gold base. You know, that was like a
that's right,
thing.
A double gold base, that's right, yes.
So sick.
That was sick. But no, absolutely, like, definitely less common on Alcyone, which we've had a little bit of the improvements, I suppose, as players taking this map and how they actually take the expansions. Initially, no one was mining out the minerals to the right, for instance, for ByuN, but now that's more common. But it's going to be that, once again, not really proxy racks, an even faster addition of the reactor or tech lab, what I'm going to use the barracks for. And the Reaper, again, will go into the main base for that very well-timed scout, too. Not that it gave him the full information last game, but then I think it gave him, like, no information in the first game. So, getting set up very much so, as Astrea also adds in, I mean, kind of, I want to call this one of the more typical openers, but obviously Stalker first compared to Adept first. Like, literally the most typical one is Adept and maybe a Stalker, but...
It's really a, you can't scout me. I'm not going to let you scout me. The Stalker is so much better at just shutting the Reaper down, but it also means he's playing a little bit more blind. Without the early sentry, it is scary if the Terran's a bit unpredictable, but he might be feeling like, hey, this is ByuN. ByuN normally has a pretty narrow toolbox compared to some other Terran players.
Yeah, I think you're going to expect some type of maybe early game Reaper shenanigans, like maybe a true proxy. Okay, sure. But as far as the, I don't know, surprising like Cyclones, second factory build, I suppose, that we've seen a couple of Terrans use cheesy-wise, not so much. The Reaper will get into the main base and scout. That is a Twilight Council opener. And that is going to be going into Blink, although give it a couple seconds to make sure. Yeah, it definitely is going to go into Blink. And the Adept did not realize that Widow Mines were burrowing. It's still got a scout, I guess, but probably don't want to die like that.
Yeah, if it was at least on attack move, would have damaged one of those Widow Mines, which potentially slows down the drop because they have to repair it, but at least he's aware of what's happening, and I feel like that is very important because Hellions, it's all about I need to stop these Hellions getting in my mineral line. Cyclones, it's I need to just not die.
Yeah.
And Widow Mines, of course, is its own thing where it's like, okay, I just need to be watching when they come in. If I can focus the medevac down, take away the maneuverability, that's great. But most importantly, I just need to run probes away and leave single probes to tank those first shots.
Astrea is sending out scouters for this exact scenario. And actually, I thought he was going probe and then pylon on the right, but he's actually doing 3 pylons all at once, which it is a little surprising. 300 minerals all slapped down at once.
The clickety-clack there. I hope you're enjoying your ASMR today, everybody. This is 2024 StarCraft now, with lovely ear noises as well. And honestly, I do actually love the clickety-clack. It's something that's kind of relaxing, brings me back to watching streams in 2012 when everyone had their microphone right next to their keyboard and it was just like clack, 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 clack. You know, you could just, it was relaxing.
That was my favorite era, though. There was K-pop on, and my favorite StarCraft pro gamer who didn't speak a lick of English, just had the audio from the keyboard. It was perfect.
Yours was very different. You know, I was listening to Idra Rage while playing this
dubstep.
Terrible dubstep song on repeat. You know?
I definitely did that as well. But the Raven is also going to be dissuaded. As Astrea, he's entirely on this opener, right? Now, there's basically always a moment where the Wood of Mine drop gets in, the Raven sneaks behind or wherever it goes. But so far, so good. And Astrea has gone for a Warp Prism. How many gateways? I didn't think this was a 4-gate. So did he go for, okay, 3 gateways, which is kind of transferable. You can use it to defend, which is going to be very nice, as ByuN is going for a bit of a Marine tank push. And actually is pretty perfect, as long as he also defends the Widow Mines well. And not blinking his Stalkers so far, as he's focused elsewhere. But the important thing is the probes so far have survived.
Oh, those Widow Mines getting burrowed in there. Another Stalker going down. A lot of Stalkers are dying to these Widow Mines.
Oh, another one.
Another 3 probes going down. Rough. Those 4 Widow Mine drops are always so good for just overloading the Protoss's attention. And that was really big value.
Yeah, that's actually quite unfortunate, honestly, because it felt like Astrea had a pretty ideal setup. He had seen the attack. He was going to casually track it. You don't necessarily have to micro against it, as it wasn't really committed either. And that maybe is a little bit of the trick that ByuN also pulled, is that maybe only the Marines and then 1 tank. It could have been a 2nd tank. It could have been a Liberator. It could have been an actual push, but it really wasn't. And so the distractions aplenty came down. Astrea definitely made some mistakes. And is once again going to be going into 2-base Storm and Charge here, something that ByuN is going to increasingly pick up on with that later 3rd base, as well as a little bit of the scouting from the Raven.
Here comes, is that a Zealot drop down the bottom? I believe it is.
I assume so.
Wonder if there's a, I don't think there'd be a High Templar in it this early. Another Auto Turret Harass comes in and gets 3 probes.
Ah, Stalkers.
Really well done. Stalker drop coming in. 4 Stalkers is the magic number to one-shot SCVs, but they're very valuable units, so losing a 4 Stalker drop at this stage is actually a disaster.
Yeah.
Astrea is down in supply massively, and that looks worse than it is because he is going Storm, and there's... Oh, the crazy ByuN drops we were talking about at the start of the series.
Oh, I guess he assumed that that was all the Stalkers, like at home defending this drop, as well as in the Warp Prism, that was not absolutely the case. And this drop will unload despite having no medevac energy. It is a threat to the probe. Storm is already done, so that's not the biggest depowering in the world. But once again, it's a distraction. Astrea is pulling his army back home. He hasn't recalled his Warp Prism, and ByuN does have a little move out. I mean, it doesn't look too big as this drop finally is cleaned up. But if that was the 3rd, it might have actually been able to bop it. The 3rd actually taken to the left means that ByuN doesn't get close to it.
Prism's gone because the 2 Vikings are here. He just needs to recall real quick. Oh.
Does he have it? Oh, he does.
Lincoln to recall, very smooth. You'll only lose 1 of the Stalkers. Gets the Prism down as well, though, so of course ByuN's very happy. And Astrea's supply blocked on 78. Thankfully, his 3rd Nexus does unsupply block him. But on 45 probes this deep, it does not feel good. The Raven has been an absolute menace, Zombie Grub.
I think with that Stalker moving out is rather disappointing. Astrea really needs more wins. It was very nice of ByuN to give him that medevac. Excellent, but that still actually isn't enough to make up for everything that's happened in this game. Astrea never really getting a chance to jab or punch at his opponent. And this hardly counts because without Storms, this is a very, weak army, frankly. The ByuN armies will take it on, no problem, especially as it has that upgrade advantage. I don't believe Astrea even has a Forge. That's not going to change anytime soon.
Rotterdam was touching on a really important point in this matchup earlier when he was talking about that trigger match where he was saying you need to just be good at 4-gate blink, 2-gate blink expand, and you need to be good at Phoenix Colossus. You have those 3 builds, you're a top-tier PvT player. Astrea has not played Phoenix much in a while, and I think ByuN knew this. He has abused the dead space so well with the Raven and the Widow Mine drop. He's done such a good job of getting himself ahead with that 2-pronged harassment while defending the counter harassment. And now ByuN finds himself with a massive army supply advantage, and he's just going to hit many places at once, saying you can't defend everywhere.
Which is very true, although Astrea does manage to ward that drop away. It also kind of felt like ByuN's hesitation added to that. But it will live, it will clear up the spotters, and Astrea will be even more in the dark. He's trying to get some type of counter-aggression on the way, but how much is it really going to be able to do? The mineral is mined out, so we'll see in the future. But ByuN is adding on further upgrades. Going to have 1-1 before Astrea even has an upgrade really going. He's going to have Ghosts. He's going to have a very good army supply lead as this drop even loses 1 or 2 Stalkers. Gets even the last one. And we even have now ByuN going for another very aggressive maneuver. This time not flying over Stalkers for medevacs. Potentially headed to that main base of Astrea.
ByuN is famous for saying, look, I got rid of your observer or I killed 1 unit, I'm going to pick my whole army up and just dive. And he likes to do it right past where you have vision, so you don't expect it. The Zealot doesn't see it. There's nothing on that path. This is a doom drop. This is a massive amount of army looking for massive amounts of damage, and there is not a lot to respond. Is there energy in the main for recall? I don't think there is. Oh, okay. No, there is plenty of energy. If he quickly snap recalls, he might be okay.
That's the question. That's pretty fast, and the bio Get caught up on that spotter pylon. Now goes after a depowering pylon. That's 3 gateways out of the equation.
Oh, ByuN's taking Widow Mine hit.
Oh, gosh.
Massive damage to his mines. He has to leave a lot of units behind. And right there, Astrea says, thank you, Widow Mine.
Yeah. See, Widow Mines are great. It also hurt Terran, it's fine. But seriously, that was very much necessary because there was no multi-pronged attack either. There was no opportunity for ByuN to even capitalize on the fact that Astrea literally recalled everything, right? So Astrea finally getting some repeat successes, but now that Zella run by a complete failure. And Astrea is still overall down in supply. Upgrades are going to be a big problem. Colossus are going to add another dynamic to the upcoming fights. Just a question of will they be in the proper position, as Astrea, I believe, has had himself blinded once again. Now, the Observer's still chilling. That's a pretty good Observer, because it was just out of ByuN's scan range, like twice.
ByuN's sitting at home, and he is letting Astrea get through this dangerous period. I think he could be more active on the map. I like that he's macroing to a 4th and double upgrades, but right now Astrea is so fragile. He's got a handful of units here. He has 2 High Templar with a lot of energy, 2 more elsewhere on the map defending his bases. It's not that many. A few good EMPs ruins his day. He's just got his first Colossi out now. I'd love to see ByuN get out there and just make him a little bit more paranoid, maybe deny this 5th base on the right side.
It's actually a little surprising, but ByuN has chosen this way of playing here, and it might be that he moves out when he's maxed out, and he's still going to have a supply lead, and it's still going to be very promising, but yeah, not necessarily hitting Astrea where it hurts with this very fragile army that really is also getting increasingly one-dimensional as the EMPs threaten all of the charge lots and the High Templars and the Archons. But not to be so Astrea gets to add that little complexity. Colossus first, perhaps some disruptors after, another layer that's going to bother ByuN, and a layer that doesn't need upgrades either, so that's always nice. I really have to applaud Astrea, I suppose, for being this confident. You know, seeing him out in the map with this army in this position is actually really a great sign as far as his attitude. Obviously, it could be a mistake, but right now, it's really spot on.
Be nice to maybe open those minerals up a bit more. Right now, that choke point can ruin your ability to rotate and defend the 4th. First-person view of Astrea. Strap yourselves in, ladies and gentlemen. He does use the Diva voice pack, so we may hear some very cringe, as the kids call it, voice lines. Personally, my favorite.
No.
Oh, come on, it's the best thing that ever happened to StarCraft was the Diva voice pack zombie grub.
The Korean Diva is actually very good, but anyway, we're moving on. We're not going to bring up any of the past transgressions. Anyway, the moving of the Colossus again, like, it can backfire. If he manages to just barely avoid that one spot on the map with a scouter and then a Doom Drop comes in, it could be devastating. Or a pop-up attack on top of his gold, that could be an easy cancel. But so far, he's got enough of the map vision with that Observer still on that 3rd base, a Zealot to the left, a Zealot to the right. He's actually even taking the map himself. Obviously, it can slow down for the Terran as far as the... Okay, goodbye, tank. As far as the expansion process goes, but we're really getting into a super big late game as ByuN is adding on 4 command centers, multiple starports. And that's really where I thought this game was going to go after Astrea dipped down so hard in supply. That's so many shieldless charge lots, but that's also just so many charge lots.
Yeah, no feedbacks. Great feedbacks, I should say, coming in on the Ghosts, and not a terrible trade for Astrea. Getting rid of some of those valuable Ghost energy, as well as pushing them back army on the front as well. No disruptors is what's so surprising, I would say, this game. It's Immortal, Storm, Colossus, a big Immortal count. Trigger is an expert in this style. I haven't seen Astrea play it this late in the game before.
Yeah, we did see Hero having a couple of surprising games, because again, kind of our expectation for this matchup is without the big Colossus, the big Robo units, basically. As we have a battle, so hold that thought. The Vikings are getting a lot of shots off on the Colossus, but the Colossus are powering through, actually getting the shots off. Rest of the Protoss army also coming through is going to force ByuN to evacuate. The Vikings will not quite get the last Colossus. No, not quite. Not quite. But at least they gave their lives in kind of a worthwhile trade. 3 Colossus for every many Vikings that was. Bit of a wash. Both players able to max out again. And it is going to be Astrea still emphasizing the Colossus, because there's also that time in this matchup where a lot of the time it will be, okay, my Colossus are gone, whatever, man. I'm on to disruptors.
EMPs take High Templar energy, a massive ambush. Astrea's army gets broadsided in the worst possible way.
Oh, wow.
Zealots fighting a planetary in the south. Astrea stumbling into ByuN's army and getting not just the worst side of that engage, but pretty much the worst side of any engagement in every single version of this universe. That was fantastic for ByuN.
That was so bad for Astrea, man. Down to the planetary, taking a bunch of the Zealots out of it, the Widow Mines popping off. Everything went well for ByuN right there. Astrea actually unfazed he still thinks he can recover, and with all the economy that he's been able to build up and still actually has running, it seems to be the case. He's actually right about this. Is he going to go up to 4 Colossus or 5? It is going to be 5. That's a lot of firepower that might make the Vikings like more and more effective without a number of stalkers to protect the Colossus. But if the Colossus are actually firing away, then it might be worth it. But right now, for Astrea, he just does not have the supply.
Yeah, unfortunately, being this outnumbered, the Colossus are going to rally into the Vikings and get taken down. It was a very close series. But at the end of the day, beyond their confidence, some say recklessness, I say confidence, I say killer instinct.